Hi there, I'm Ellen Johnson. I am the owner of Serendipity Needleworks and the founder of the Stitchers Club, and I am absolutely delighted to be with you here this afternoon for another episode of Needlepoint TV. So before we dive in, if you would do me a really big favor and type into the comments where you're watching from, and if you can see me and hear me okay, because we always want to make sure that the technology is working right. And so once I get that notification, then we will dive right into our content. If you can give me either a thumbs up or a heart or something to let me know if you happen to be watching on Facebook, then that's a great way for me to be able to know that everything's working well. And all right, so we got the thumbs up. We are in good shape. Great. I know it takes sometimes just a minute or two for everybody to realize that we've gone live and for you to find me. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with me today. It's great to be here with you, as it always is. Again, please make sure that you share where you're watching from. Say hello, tell me your name and where you are in this great, big, wonderful world that we all live in. And if you're watching this as a recording, make sure that you leave that information for me as well, because I do love to come back and see who's keeping up with me here on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. So we have been in the midst of, for the past 2 weeks, doing the Stitch Challenge, the 2020 Stitch Challenge. And I've been sharing with people who signed up for that different stitches that you can use on your needlepoint canvases to add texture and depth and visual interest to your projects. So I want to go ahead and share with you. I'm going to go ahead and post this on the bottom of the screen so that if you haven't already signed up, it's not too late. We've done so far 11 stitches, but we still have 4 to go. So we'd love to have you join us if you feel so inclined. So all you have to do is just go to that link. You can type that in your browser and it should pop up the page for you to be able to sign up, and then you'll be all set. So something that I would love to share with you today is some of the different threads that I like to use on 13 and 18 count canvas. The reason I'm sharing this with you today is because actually during the course of our challenge, someone mentioned in the chat box that they would sure love to know what threads would be good for different sizes of the different mesh canvas. So typically painted canvases are painted on 13 mesh and 18 mesh. They're typically painted on mono canvas, which is a single weave canvas. And those two, with those two being the most common, there are also other sizes of canvas, but the majority of the painted canvases are painted on those 2 canvas sizes. So I wrote a blog post, and I'm going to share my screen with you really quickly. Let me see. I know I have to get to the right place. So hang on one sec. I know this is always, all this switching back and forth between screens is a little bit, takes a little bit of time to do. So, all righty. So let me do this, and we're going to share the screen so you can see just exactly where that blog post is. And there we go. So you can see that I have the picture that's posted here is actually a picture of Weeks Dye Works, which is a beautiful hand-dyed thread. It's an over-dyed cotton embroidery floss, and it's one of my favorite over-dyed threads. I know I also frequently will mention to you that I love Threadworks over-dyed threads. That's one of my other favorites for over-dyed cotton threads. And then there's also a company called the Karen Collection, and the Karen Collection has beautiful threads that are suitable for a variety of different mesh sizes of canvas. So depending on what size project or canvas you're working on, you can pull from their beautiful collection of threads too. They have cottons and silks and some other novelty threads that are really nice to work with too. So as long as you know where this is, I'm going to actually stop sharing because, well, let me scroll down just a sec. You can see that I've shared a list of my favorite threads for the different sizes of the mesh canvas. And what I did was I broke it down by fiber type. So it's divided by cotton and then wool and silk. And then I did list some blends and then also novelty threads and metallics. So you can read that blog post. It's super helpful. And I've had a lot of people say they really are glad that I did that because it was information that they had been curious about and they found it super, super helpful. So I'm glad to be able to share that with you. And I thought what I'd do this afternoon is share with you some of my favorite threads too, and just chat with you a little bit about one in particular. So, all right. So here we go. I'm looking now. Let me just take a peek at all the comments that I have because I see we have so many people who have popped in, and this is great. So I want to make sure I don't miss any questions. Oh, and Carol says that she has started a chart to refer to so she knows which threads you can use on the different canvases, or different size canvases. So that is great. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I'll tell you, having something like that, having a resource like that is super, super helpful. And, I think that, it's just, you can make it, you can print it out, you can put it in a plastic sleeve and stick it in your project bag. Or if you happen to go and be in a place where, the local needlepoint shops are open and you can go shop, then you can carry that with you and, quickly just pull it out of your bag and you'll know which threads you can use without having to, to second guess yourself. So great idea there, Carol. Thanks for sharing that. So, some of my favorites, these are actually some threads that I have pulled for a project that we're going to be working on inside of the Stitchers Club. Actually, people who were participated in the Girlfriends Getaway, which was my retreat that we had this past June. And yes, we actually were able to have a retreat. It was not live. Well, I take that back. It was live. It was virtual though. And so there was a canvas that was supposed to be our project, and because of all the things that happened with COVID, we didn't get to do that project, but I promised the ladies that what we would do is we would carry that forward and we would work on it once we were able to get all of the threads in. So I have the threads that I'm planning to use for the most part. I don't have everything in. I'm still waiting on a few things, but I thought I'd pull from that bag to share with you some of the threads that, that are in some of my favorite colors, because this is I love this canvas. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to stitch, and I'm super excited about sharing it with everybody, because I want y'all to watch the progress as as I make progress on the stitch guide and on the actual stitching of the canvas too. So, all right, let me hop back over here so I can see the comments. I don't want to miss any comments. So, all right. And there we go. So one of my all-time favorite threads for 13 mesh canvas is, I love to use Neon Rays Plus. This is actually one that I love for 18 mesh canvas too. But Neon Rays Plus is a ribbon thread, and it has a little bit of sparkle in it. It's also one of those threads that, because you have that metallic blended into the ribbon, that little bit of metallic makes the Neon Rays Plus actually a little bit easier to work with than just plain Neon Rays. Neon Rays is a ribbon type thread. Let me reach back here in this basket. I have another basket back here. I have baskets everywhere. So let me grab, let's see, because this is where we've been also working on the stitch challenge, the 2020 stitch challenge. I have threads everywhere. It looks like a thread explosion. So this is Neon Rays. Neon Rays is a really nice thread. It's a ribbon thread that you can use on 13 and 18 count. It has a really high sheen. It's really, really pretty. And it does, now we'll say this, it does come off the card a little bit. It's got little kinks in it, but there's an easy way to get rid of those. And all you have to do is, well, there are two things you can do. You can use a flat iron like you use on your hair, or you can run this between a damp sponge or some damp paper towels, and then you have to let it dry, but that does get rid of the kinks in it. And that works on a lot of the threads from Rainbow Gallery. That's one of their go-to tips for how to work with some of their threads that do come off the card like that. So just keep that in mind when you're working with Rainbow Gallery's threads. If they come off the card with those little folds in them, you can definitely use the damp sponge to run the thread through. Just fold it over the thread and pull the thread through, and that gets rid of a lot of that problem. So, all right. Another one of my, so that's Neon Race Plus. Another really great thread that you can use on both 13 and 18 count is Flayer. I love Flayer. It is kind of bad to unravel, so you do have to keep that in mind. But there are a couple of ways to treat the ends of this so that it's not such a frustrating thing to work with. You can treat the ends with a product called Fray Check, which is a liquid that you can dab on the ends of the thread, and then you have to let it dry. So if you're going to use Fray Check, I would suggest cutting pieces ahead of time, and you're going to want to use shorter pieces rather than longer pieces because it does have that tendency to unravel. But you can use the Fray Check, cut several pieces ahead of time, and treat the ends, let them dry, and then you can just go to town stitching. The other option to treat the ends for this kind of thread that has that tendency to unravel like that is to use a little gadget called a thread zap. Many people that make jewelry use that particular tool to singe the ends of the threads that they're using for making their jewelry, and you can use it on some of your needlepoint threads too. So what it does is it does actually melt the end of the thread, but it keeps it from unraveling. So it's a really handy tool to have in your work basket, because I think you'll find that you use it a lot if you use a lot of the novelty threads from Rainbow Gallery. So super helpful little gadget to have on hand. Another really great thread is, and I actually only pulled this one for 18 count, but Silk Lemay Braid comes in 13 for 13 count. It's actually called Silk Lemay Braid for 13 count, and then Silk Lemay Braid you have also for 18 count. I love this thread. It's Splendor, which is my all-time favorite stranded silk thread to use. It's a Splendor, 4 strands of Splendor, at least for the 18 count, and then 4 strands of a metallic blending filament blended together. So the beauty of using Silk Lemay Braid is that you can match the color to a skein of Splendor. So if you are a card of Splendor, if you're working on a project and you wanted to have some texture that had some metallic, a metallic look or some sparkle to it, and then you wanted to mix that with a matching silk without the sparkle, you can do that with Splendor and Silk Lemay Braid. So I love this thread. It's so nice to work with, and it comes in just a ton of colors. They have so many colors available. And so I would, if you've never used this before, I would definitely suggest using it. Now, one of the little tricks that I use, if I'm working on 13 mesh canvas and I want light coverage, I'll use Silk Lemay Braid 18 on the 13 mesh canvas. If I want full coverage on the 13 mesh canvas, then of course I'm going to use Silk Lemay Braid for 13 count. And then this also works very well for full coverage on 18 count. The 18 count one does. So, and there is a product called Petite Silk Lemay Braid, and it's very thin. So if you wanted some light coverage on an 18 mesh canvas, then you could definitely use Petite Silk Lemay Braid on an 18 count canvas. Another thread, and this is Splendor. That leads me to Splendor. Splendor is my all-time favorite thread that I use, the stranded silk thread on painted canvas. And the reason I love it so much is that it's so easy to work with. When you work with a skein of Splendor, and I'm going to use, or a card of Splendor, I'm going to use this one because it's already opened. Let me take that off and show you, because it's really easy. When you unwind it off the card, you can take it and tap the end like a little, you tap it and it kind of flowers out. And if you look at that, you see that there are 3 little bundles of thread that kind of separated themselves. What Splendor, the way it's put together is that it is actually 12 strands of silk that have been twisted together, but the 12 bundle, or the one single strand has 3 bundles of 4 strands each. In order to get full coverage on 18 mesh canvas, you're going to want to use 4 strands. So the easiest way to work with Splendor is to go ahead and cut yourself a piece of thread off. And then once you've floured out the end, that's what I call that, when it does that little dividing thing, just like that. Then what you can do, well, it's going to do it for me. It's stuck to my finger. So what you can do is hold on to one of the bundles like this, grab one of the bundles and hold on to the others in your non-dominant hand, slide the one bundle of 4 strands out, just like that, and you still have your 2 over here, or your 2 bundles of 4 over there. And then you can take and divide the same way using the same technique. You'll pull 1 strand out at a time, because anytime you work with the stranded silk, you're going to want to pull the strands out and then put them back together again. That's called stranding. So pull out 1 strand at a time, lay it down. Let's see if I can do this quickly. Pull out another strand, lay it down side by side next to the other one, and then pull out another one. And then finally you have your last one. And that's when you can take all of the strands and put them back together and then thread them into your needle. And what you'll do once you've done that is you're going to use a laying tool. And I'm going to reach back here and grab one of these so you can see what a laying tool is. So this is a laying tool. A laying tool is what you use to help you lay the threads, aptly named, right? What you use to help you lay the threads on the surface of the canvas so that the strands lay side by side instead of getting twisted around on themselves. So you can see how much different. Let me go ahead and get these all straight, or get all of them back up together so you can see. Well, I tell you what, let's do this. Let me put these papers down, because I do have a lap full of papers. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, we're going to try something here. If I can, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do this. So cancel. So if you're going to join me tonight for the the 2020 Stitch Challenge, then I'll show you tonight what the difference is between the Splendor that has been stranded and what the Splendor is that has not been stranded, because I have the ability to go to a different camera, and I'm sure I probably have that ability, but I just realized that I don't have my camera connected, my second camera connected, because we were having some camera issues last night, which hopefully are solved now. So, or at least they will be before we get together tonight at 7 o'clock. So you can see though, I'm going to pull another bundle out so that you can see. So this is what the strand looks like when you don't strip it apart. And when you do pull the strands apart and put them back together, you can see that it actually looks a little bit thicker. And that's the point. You want it to be thicker. So let me see if there are any questions that have popped up at this point. Okay, good deal. None so far. All right, so another really great thread that I love to use on 13 and 18 count canvas is Very Velvet. Now, I like to use, obviously, because it's made for it, I like to use Petite Very Velvet on 18 count canvas, and then regular Very Velvet, and it's not called regular Very Velvet, it's called Very Velvet, but I like to use that one on 13 mesh canvas. The same little trick applies with this thread that applies to the Silk Lemay braid. If you want light coverage on 13 count canvas, you can use Petite Very Velvet. And then of course, if you want full coverage, then you want to use the Very Velvet. And this, I just love this thread. It's so soft and nice to work with. One little tip I will share with you is that if you're using Very Velvet and you're going to be, for example, you have a Santa and you're a canvas with a Santa on it, and you want to use the Very Velvet for the Santa's coat, and you want to use a white thread for the trim on Santa's coat. If you're going to use the red velvet on Santa's coat, typically the rule is, or the rule of thumb is, to work your white or your light colors first. But because this thread, the Very Velvet and the Petite Very Velvet, have a wee bit of a tendency to shed, I always recommend that you go ahead and stitch the Very Velvet or Petite Very Velvet first if it's going to be adjacent to an area that's white or very light in color. Because what will happen if you don't is that if you stitch the white first and then you stitch with the darker of the Very Velvet or the Petite Very Velvet, sometimes because that thread does have a tendency to shed just a little bit, it'll get onto the little fuzzies will get onto the white that you've already stitched, and it can cause some problems. So anyway, just a little handy tip there. Hope that you can find that useful. Another thread that I love I absolutely adore is this thread called Vineyard Silk Classic. This is a beautiful thread. Some people use it on 13 count canvas and have full coverage, get full coverage. I like it personally on 18 count canvas best. I think I get better coverage with it that way. It does have I'll call it a sister thread. It's called Vineyard Merino. And Vineyard Merino, this is a skein of Vineyard Merino that's actually already been cut. So Vineyard Merino is a very springy thread. It has a lot of bounce to it. It's a tightly twisted thread. The colors in Vineyard Merino match the colors that are in Vineyard Silk as much as they can. Anytime you have a thread that's a different fiber content, what's going to happen is that the fiber is going to take the thread or the dye differently. So the color, this color would look different in fact, I may be able to show you what it looks like. Hang on one second. I can show you the difference between what that thread looks like in, here we go. So you'll be able to see how the difference in wool and the difference in silk. So this is the wool. So the wool is in this hand and the silk is in this hand. I put them side by side, and you can see that the light bounces off, and they look, even though they're the same color, they do look just a tiny bit different. And that's because the light bounces off the silk, whereas it doesn't so much on the wool. So while these could be used together, and when you're looking at them, again, this will be something that I'll share with you if you join me tonight for the challenge. I can lay these out on a table, and you'll be able to see that a little bit better. But anyway, that's just an interesting, to me, always an interesting thing to see how thread looks very different based on what the fiber content is. All right. Well, y'all, that is pretty much all that I have to share with you today about the different threads. If you get my weekly emails, then you know that I shared some additional information with you today about Splendor in today's email. If you haven't already read the email for today, be sure and check your inbox because it is there waiting for you. And if you aren't getting those and would like to get those, then let me hop over here quickly and show you where you can sign up. Use that link to sign up for our weekly emails. They go out every Tuesday, barring anything unforeseen. And so there's always a little bit of what I like to call lagniappe, which is just a little something extra that I like to share with people who are my weekly subscribers to my emails. So if you do sign up for that, then of course you'll continue, or you will begin to receive those. And you'll also get little inside, I guess, early bird notice about special things that we have coming up. And I do actually want to make sure that I mention, for those of you who might be interested in learning a little more about how to choose the best stitches and threads for your projects so that you can write your own stitch guides, I have a workshop that's going to be happening on October the 17th, and it's called Stitch Guides Made Simple Live. It's a one-day workshop, and it's going to be on the 17th, which is a Saturday, from 10 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. If you would like to get more information about that, there's the link. All you have to do is just hop over there and take a peek to see if it looks like something you might want to participate in. I would love to have you join me. I think we're going to have a terrific time. I'm going to be walking you through my signature system for writing stitch guides. It's just called the Stitch Guide Formula, pretty simple. And we're going to be spending some time going through that step by step. I'll walk you through the process that I use to write stitch guides for my projects and the process that I used to help people when they were customers of mine when I had my brick and mortar store, when I was helping them choose stitches for their canvases, and when I was teaching people how to do that for themselves too inside my store when I was teaching classes there. So I appreciate you being here with me this afternoon. Again, thanks ever so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're going to be joining me tonight, remember 7 o'clock Central, because we're going to be watching or doing our stitch reveal, I guess you call it, tonight at 7 instead of 8 because of the presidential debate. So 7 o'clock Central Time. I will see those of you who will be joining me there for that. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week, great weekend, and I will see you all again real soon. Happy stitching, and bye for now.